afternoon, everybody, and many thanks for your time and for choosing to attend this presentation. I know you had a choice. Life is about choices, and I've made a few choices in terms of setting up 27K1, and some of that has been based upon making decisions about the way my company's gone and the strategy, and other choices have been dependent upon luck. So let me introduce a little bit of background, and that'll tell you where we've come from, and then I'll tell you where we're going to. So, Jim.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. I'm an ex-QSA. For my sins, I sort of went down that route of burnout. I got disillusioned with PCI, and I'm going to go into that and explain how I got involved with 27K1. 27K1, as you understand, is a 27001 solution. Jeremy approached me and said, I've got this fantastic platform. I'd like to introduce you to it. He took me through an hour's demo of it, got to the end of it, and I went, that's nice, but I work for an issuer, and I'm helping them with a PCI piece. He then said, what's PCI? I then spent the next month, 2 months, 3 months boring him to death talking about PCI. So what we're going to do is talk about how we then built this product. And just a quick show of hands, how many QSAs have we got in the room? Fantastic. Okay. So this app is targeted at QSAs to help you do the rock writing.
Thank you, Jim. So by way of background, we'll introduce that, and then we'll move on to Jim. So just a few milestones. My journey to here has come from England, but in fact, you won't believe this, but it's actually taken about 5 years to get here. I know that's a long time, but it's true. Let me explain. I started 27K1 with an ISO 27001 solution. No customers, no software, just faith and belief. So we started in 2018, my partner, Peter, who isn't here, and myself. And after 4 years, the journey had been absolutely incredible insofar as we'd attracted some incredible customers, which I'll tell you about in a moment. But also, if you know about ISO 27001, you'll know, and this was a bit of luck, you'll know that the controls have changed from the 2013 controls to the 2022 controls, which means there's a driver for change. And that's not too dissimilar to version 321, changed to v4. Again, a driver for change. So we've been in the right place at the right time. Jim's just explained that we met, and it was about a year ago, and we didn't know much about PCI DSS, but Jim recognized our system had value and virtue, and he persuaded us to go down the PCI route. The first product that we developed was an SAQ management system, and that's led on to the PCI DSS v4 solution that we're now introducing at the show, and that's why we're here. So just very quickly, before I hand over to Jim, if somebody had said to me when we started our journey that our clients would include the United Nations, the Metropolitan Police, which is the largest police organization in the UK, and an organization called GTR, who run most of the public transport and passenger journeys in the UK, I wouldn't have believed it, but I'd have taken that, because don't forget, we started out with nothing. But we've got now proven solutions, fabulous customers, and we're making a splash. And we're hoping to make a big splash with you. So that said, let me hand over to Jim, and Jim will tell you more about our product.
Okay, so
thank you.
I did a hands up, number of QSAs in the room. How many new QSAs? Okay, excellent. 3 to 5 years? 15 years? So you've done various versions of rocks. How much time do you get in between rocks? You're a commodity. You work for a QSA company. If you're not doing client-paid work, you're losing money, aren't you? The company's losing money. What I found is I'm British, I'm ex-military, I don't complain. I was getting these rocks coming in continuously, bouncing between different rocks. And I literally got to the point where I was either going to hospital because I stayed in the job, or I left PCI completely disillusioned. It was 3 years before I came back to PCI. What brought me back to PCI is working in a bank. seeing how they did PCI, and I thought, I'm going to write a book on it. Always wanted to write a book. I wrote that in 2 months, and suddenly I went, it's not PCI that's the problem. It's how we write rocks. It's very manual. So I then started sort of doing stuff myself, and I was toying with the idea, am I going to set up a QSA company and do it my own way? And then V4 came out. The V4 rock template came out. I was helping the QSA doing all the legwork for the V4 rock assessment. I was looking at the stuff you have to do manually, backwards and forwards, between the different sections, part 1 to part 2 to part 1, section 6, collating. I was like, I am not going back as a QSA. But that's when this solution came in. So, few stats. Basic template. Part 1, 46 pages. Part 2, 440 pages. That's before you start putting your information in it. Validation fields. I spent a weekend going through, and if you deconstruct something, you then rebuild it, and you can start to understand it. So I started to break down all those testing requirements and thought, well, we've got non-specific, where it doesn't really tell you how you want to enter it. Some are very specific. Some are very loose, so document reviews. You have to look into the finer detail to say, is that a document review or not? I started to go through the actual rock and put the context and how long it would take you. How many people have gone into detail on the new rock template and said, how much does this differ from version 3.2.1? How much more time is it going to take us to create those rocks and write up the rocks? How many people in the room are doing a rock up until 4 o'clock in the morning because you've got a QA window that you need to get it into? If you miss that QA window, then your clients, it has a knock-on effect. I got fed up of that. I think V4 is going to accelerate that. It's a good template, but there's a lot of manual processes in it. Break it down into percentages. So you've got documentation reviews, 38% of your assessment testing criteria is through documentation reviews. And you can see that criteria, how it breaks down. I then started looking at how long it would take you. There's 1,850 entry fields without adding the extra lines that have to be completed. Oops. How do I go back? That one, yeah. So I then started looking at, on average, how long it would take you to write the rock. If it took you on average 30 seconds per entry, that's 2 days, sat in front of a computer, 6 hours a day. You know, you're going brain dead, just filling in the not applicables, SAQA, 29 control or 29 PCI requirements. You guys get paid a lot of money to go and do admin stuff, to go through and tick boxes to say that's not applicable control. Of the 260 requirements, only 29 apply because they're an e-commerce, fully outsourced, using a PCI compliant provider. Why are you wasting your time filling in stuff, and your clients are paying you to do stuff that you can be doing a lot more quality stuff? You guys are very well trained and very well experienced. I'd like to see you get some time back in your diaries so you can have some buffer time between doing the rock, not doing the admin stuff. And that's where these guys came in. If you're doing 1 minute per entry, that's 4 days on the rock, just doing the entries. That's not actually time reviewing the documentation, that's just putting the entries in. How much on average, 5 days, 6 days, is a client willing to pay? They don't know this stuff. That's you working from home, writing your rocks. You've got salespeople phoning you up, wanting you to jump on calls, get a new potential client. You've got admin stuff to do. You've got timesheets to do. How many relate to that little image of the person doing multitasking? At 4 o'clock in the morning, when you're multitasking, you're filling in because you're catching up. How good is your rock entries? 8 o'clock in the morning, your entries are fantastic. By 4 o'clock in the next morning, your entries are, yeah, they do it. So it is a complex assessment process. That's what you get paid for, is to write that up the client is expecting you to be able to validate and put everything in place. You're doing the points to prove and you're writing it up. We want to give you some time back in your diaries and stop wastage. You've got multiple compliance standards that an organization might be aligning to. You want to make PCI as easy as possible. I guess in the room, you're doing ISO 27001, you're doing SOC, you're doing HIPAA. You're not just doing PCI. It's an iterative review process whereby you're going backwards and forwards into QA. If you miss one of those 1,850 entry points, it goes to QA. QA send it back to you and said, you've missed this, you've missed that. We don't like that. You know, when you're putting in and you're doing a sentence at 4 o'clock in the morning and it makes complete gobbledygook, your QAs are sending it back saying, what have you written here? What is this? You're looking at varying data sources and you're trying to link them all together. Deadlines and time constraints. Your client has got a deadline. They need to be compliant by a certain date. You've got to get into that QA window. What we're trying to do is give you that back. Use an assessment platform that's been purposely designed from an ex-QSA with a development team to say, look, these are the pain points I suffered. This is why I moved away from the industry. What can you do to help? Communication challenges. You know, how do you communicate that back to the organization? I've heard the term INFI, which you're now going to have to do a separate report document on. We're now going to incorporate that into it. So by default, the INFI will be set as not applicable, but if you need to put one in there, you click a slide across, it generates a report for you in the assessment platform. Documentation version control, everything's done through the app. We've been speaking with the PCI Council, gone through MLA, and the output from the assessment, the digital assessment platform, outputs in the analog PCI official ROC template. Chain of evidence, full audit trail. You put your ROC into QA. They come back to you and say, this needs to be changed. QSA says, you weren't there, you don't understand it, this is right. But you still have to click to accept that you've rejected that comment. And there's a full audit trail on it. And then, of course, stringent requirements. In PCI, you've got those terms and conditions that you all have to follow. You all sign it as a QSA. And one of those, for example, is once a week, you have to go and look at the PCI website and make sure you're up to date with all the latest changes. I hope you've got the time in between doing all these ROCs to be able to do that. This is a real-life example that I went through. This is why I worked away from PCI. 30-day work schedule. I was assigned 3 level 1 ROCs, 1 in Canada, 1 in Birmingham in the UK, 1 in London. I was doing it manually, lots of contemporaneous notes. We're going through, one was a reassessment, one was a brand new assessment. They didn't know PCI, and they needed to be handheld through it. One was partially completed. Somebody had gone sick, another QSA. I stepped in because we've got those deadlines to fill. I didn't know whether I was writing stuff about Toronto, in London, in Birmingham. I didn't know my backside from my elbow. I put it in for feedback. Of course, the QA went, what on earth is this? And that backwards and forwards I was having to then fit in the QA updates with the other ROCs. And I literally got to the point where I said, I need to move away. And I literally, that was me done. PCI, I wrote about it in the book, I became so disillusioned with the standard that, and it's not the standard's very, very good. It's built on good industry frameworks. It's how we do the legwork. So root causes. You work with an organization that uses a lean operating model. You've got a handful of people, QSAs, they're expensive resources, keep it to a minimum. You've got to work around that. Resource constraints. So resource constraints in the organization, your QA staff are probably another QSA who's got a half a day window to do your report. They want to be doing their own stuff. QSA sickness. This is a huge thing. You know, as you start putting this burden on, the stress and the burnout. Lack of understanding of the time, getting that time back. the customer willingness to pay what they don't understand. If you tell them it takes 5 days to write a report, they go, what? No, I just want a report. And then, of course, the deadlines. You've all been there. I've been there. Most of you in here who've done rocks will relate to these. If we don't protect our QSAs, all of these are going to come in, into play. And the bottom one, stress and burnout, is a huge thing. I'm very concerned about stress and burnout. So this is where we came up with this. It's an interactive digital assessment platform. You look at it, it is the rock, but in digital format. It's intuitive, so easy to use. If you've done a rock, you can do this. Broken up into part 1, part 2. Another point, you can do the SAQ eligibility criteria. So you do SAQA, it automatically populates not applicables, takes out all those non-SAQA things, saves you having to do it. Links section 6 in part 1 with your assessment, so you do it in the same interface. And as I said, it uses the official rock template. And the compensating controls, hideous thing that's in the assessment. We've got a little slider. If you've not used a compensating control, they're all defaulted to not applicable. You slide it across, it populates it. That little 181, the executive summary, the app automatically populates. So if you've put not applicables in, it automatically puts that list in for you, puts all your compensating controls in, saves you a lot of time. That's how it works. It's cloud-based. You own the data. You link your documents, your evidence to the controls. You can provide your rock template, or we can use the PCI Council's rock template. How much you were saving? Oh, that didn't work, but saving time, basically what you're looking at is, I reckon, using the app, taking all the automation out of it, you're looking at saving about 2 days of time. Still charge the client, but get that time back in your diaries so you can actually have some recovery time.
Do you mind?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay. So just kind of winding up, and thanks for that, Jim. We've got 2 products. The one that we're focused upon is our 27K1 rock management system, the RMS. The fact of the matter is that we'll give you the software for free. Thereafter, depending upon the number of assessments you want to do, you tell us, and we'll...
Free?
Free, Jim.
No.
Free. You tell us how many assessments you want to do, and we will load it up, and we will charge you accordingly. But it's working out, to begin with, $1,500 per assessment, okay? And if you do more, the price reduces. The feedback that we've had is that that's incredible value for money. We estimate that per rock, you should be saving around 6 days. That's an estimate. When I came here, my thoughts were that these features in terms of saving time would be really critical in saving money. But what's happened since I've been here, what's dawned upon us through interaction with QSAs, is that there's a churn across QSAs because, as Jim says, the pressures upon you are immense. This will give you time. This will allow you not to churn through. This will relieve the pressure. And that's a huge benefit that's of great interest to QSA companies. We've also got an SAQ system. Come and see us about that as well. So just, you've got a choice. Carry on as you are. Use your Excel spreadsheets, tie the whole thing up with string, use Word documents. If that's what you want to do that. But you'll find that when you get to v4, it's far more complicated. You really need a software solution. And we've developed one. You don't have to use it. Just come and have a look at it. I think you'll like it. Let's work together.
And just one last thing. Because the PCI Council have been so supportive in the stuff that we've been doing, what I've done, I self-authored a book on v4. If you use Kindle, over the duration of this event, you can download it for free. So it's a gift. So if you like it and you're old school like me, you like paper, you can buy it, but it's free referencing. It puts my insight into what PCI is, I align it to aviation security. So feel free to buy it.
We're
or
on
to
stand
download
60.
it, use it.
We're on stand 60. Come and see us. We welcome you. And we'd like to thank you for your time this afternoon. It's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure. I wish you a safe return to wherever you've come from. Friday, I'm going back to England. Look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.